The evening light thinned across the empty Wyoming plain as Elias Boone stepped onto the abandoned station platform, his 6-year-old daughter's small hand tucked inside his calloused grip. The silence around them felt deliberate, as though the world had folded its breath to watch what might become of a cowboy who carried grief like a shadow stitched to his spine. Clara swung her boots lightly, humming a tune her mother once sang, unaware that each soft note tugged at the unhealed parts of her father. Elias scanned the quiet tracks for the supply wagon, but his gaze faltered when Clara suddenly stilled. Her fingers tightened around his. She wasn't looking at him. She was pointing beyond him, toward the far end of the platform where a young native widow stood with a woven satchel at her feet. The woman's posture held neither threat nor begging. It was the posture of someone used to being observed before being judged. "Daddy," Clara whispered, eyes wide. "She looks like Mama." The words carried through Elias like an unexpected wind. He didn't move at first, afraid to look, afraid of what longing might betray in him. But curiosity and ache overcame hesitation, and when he turned, he felt his breath falter. The woman, no more than 22, stood in the failing amber light, her braids brushing her elbows, her expression quietly guarded. She did not resemble his late wife in features, but something in the delicate strength of her stance, the weary grace of her shoulders, stirred a memory he wasn't prepared to face. Ayanna Redbird kept her gaze lowered, sensing the weight of their attention. She had traveled miles alone after sickness scattered her people and left her without a home. She expected suspicion from settlers. She had endured it too many times to be surprised by it now. Yet Clara's gaze held only gentle curiosity, not fear. Ayanna allowed herself a single breath of relief, small, fragile, but real. Elias forced composure, but he couldn't shake the whisper of recognition threading through him. It wasn't resemblance. It was the quiet echo of a life he'd lost. He tried to swallow the feeling before it grew into something dangerous. He had buried his heart once. He wasn't certain he could do it again. The supply wagon arrived with a clatter of hooves, breaking the stillness. The driver waved them aboard, and Elias lifted Clara up before offering Ayanna a hand. She hesitated, not wanting to seem dependent, yet refusing would seem ungrateful. She accepted, her fingers light against his palm. A small, inexplicable jolt ran through him. As they rode toward town, Ayanna kept her eyes fixed on the fading horizon, aware of the stares gathering like storm clouds. Marla Henshaw, ever hungry for gossip, watched from her porch with her arms crossed tight enough to choke the circulation from her fingers. Several others emerged from storefronts, their expressions pinched with disapproval. Clara, unbothered, leaned against Ayanna's arm, her doll resting in her lap. Elias felt the judgment sharpen around them. He had endured gossip before, about his loneliness, about raising a child alone. But this was different. This was directed at someone who had done nothing but exist in the wrong place at the wrong time. When the wagon stopped, Marla's voice slithered forward. "Boone," she said, eyes narrowing on Ayanna, "don't tell me you're collecting strays now." Elias ignored her, though the urge to defend the woman beside him pressed hard against his restraint. Ayanna stepped down lightly, expression unreadable, though her fingers tightened around her satchel. She had survived worse than whispers, but that didn't soften their sting. Clara reached for Ayanna's hand. "You can stay with us," she said cheerfully. Ayanna blinked, startled. "Child, I would not wish to bring trouble to your door." Elias hesitated. He felt the weight of Clara's words, felt something shift inside him, fragile yet persistent. "There's an empty bunkhouse on my land," he said finally. "You're welcome to rest there until you find your footing." Ayanna studied him, searching for insincerity, but found none. Still, shame flickered in her eyes. "I don't want charity," she murmured. "It isn't charity," Elias said quietly. "It's a roof. Nothing more." Clara tugged Ayanna's sleeve again, and something in the widow's guarded posture softened. Then, "I accept," she whispered. They walked toward the waiting horses, the night settling deeper around them. For the first time in a long time, Elias felt the faint hum of possibility beneath his grief, though he tried not to name it. Ayanna followed with measured steps, unaware that eyes watched her from the darkened edge of town, eyes that did not approve, eyes already planning conflict. Just as they reached the outskirts, a cold wind rose, rustling the dry grass and sending a shiver through the widow. Elias glanced back at her, realizing too late that offering shelter might bring danger to them all. Yet Clara's effortless trust had already drawn the three of them into a fragile new orbit. The ranch lanterns flickered in the distance, warm against the growing dusk, and as they approached, Ayanna paused, looking at the light as though unsure she deserved its welcome. Elias waited beside her, silent but steady. Clara squeezed her hand, and in that suspended moment, half fear, half hope, the night seemed to hold its breath again, as though aware that everything from this point on could no longer remain unchanged. Dawn crept over the Boone Ranch in muted gold, brushing faint warmth across the bunkhouse window, where Ayanna Redbird sat plaiting Clara's hair. The child chattered softly, unaware of the tremor Ayanna tried to steady in her palms. She had slept lightly, feeling judgment pressing from the town like a tightening noose. Elias Boone worked just outside, mending a fence rail with rhythmic precision, yet even he sensed an unfamiliar tension in the air, one that whispered of consequences creeping nearer. Their days had unfolded in quiet, growing harmony. Ayanna helped with meals, Clara's schooling, and the simple work of tending the land. Elias found an unexpected peace in her presence, a gentleness that filled spaces he hadn't realized were hollow. But the town had not forgotten her arrival. Whispers swelled like a storm building over the plains, fueled by suspicion and old grudges. Elias ignored them at first, but each ride into town brought sharper stares, colder tones, and muttered warnings. The unease finally took form when Sheriff Dalton Crow rode to the ranch one dusk with the brittle authority of a man who already knew the outcome he wanted. He dismounted heavily, boots striking the earth with purpose. "Boone," he said, voice flat, "your guest has stirred enough unrest. She needs to leave by sundown tomorrow." Ayanna stepped onto the porch, chin lifted. "On what grounds?" she asked quietly. Crow eyed her with a disdain sharpened by prejudice. "Your people took cattle from a settler years ago. A man claims your husband led the raid. That's cause enough." Elias stiffened. "Who claims it?" "Jonas Pike," Crow said. "He says he lost half his herd." A flicker of something darker crossed Ayanna's face. "Jonas Pike passed through my village once," she murmured. "He was not welcome there." Crow showed no interest in nuance. He turned to Elias. "You're decent, Boone. Don't tie your fate to hers." Elias watched him ride away, a slow burn rising beneath his ribs. Something about the sheriff's certainty felt wrong, too easily accepted, too conveniently timed. That night, Clara could not sleep. She found Ayanna sitting alone by the dying embers of the hearth, her hands clasped tightly. "I don't want you to go," Clara whispered. Ayanna swallowed. "Some storms must be met head-on, little one, even if they scatter everything we know." Unbeknownst to them, Jonas Pike lurked beyond the barn, pacing with restless agitation. His lies had grown teeth, and fear of exposure gnawed at him. His resentment toward Elias and toward Ayanna had festered into something volatile. The truth began to unravel by accident. Clara rose early, wandering outside with her doll. She froze when she heard Jonas speaking to himself, voice sharp with panic. "Had to blame someone, couldn't let them pin it on me. Her husband got in the way, tried to save those brats. Should have stayed dead," quietly. Clara's heart pounded. She ran to Elias, breathless, tears streaking her cheeks. "Daddy," she cried, "that man hurt her people. He lied, he killed them." Elias knelt, gripping her shoulders gently but firmly. "What did you hear, sweetheart?" She repeated Jonas's words, trembling. Elias rose, jaw set. A quiet fury thrummed in him, not the reckless kind, but the kind that sharpened resolve. He found Ayanna and told her what Clara had overheard. For a moment, Ayanna swayed as though struck. "He killed my husband," she whispered, voice cracking under years of suppressed grief. "He let us be blamed." Elias touched her arm lightly. "We'll face him, but not here." They rode to the abandoned station, the same place where their lives had first brushed against each other. The morning air was taut with foreboding. Ayanna stood with surprising calm, her fear replaced by clarity. Clara clung to Elias's hand, wide-eyed but brave. Jonas arrived moments later, rage and desperation brimming behind his eyes. "You should have stayed quiet," he snarled. "All of you." Elias stepped forward. "The truth has found you, Jonas. It always does." Jonas drew his rifle, hands shaking. "I won't lose everything because of her." Ayanna stepped between Jonas and Elias. "You already lost everything the moment you chose hatred," she said softly. The rifle fired, wild, panicked. The bullet struck metal, ricocheting harmlessly into the dirt. Sheriff Crow, drawn by the commotion, arrived just in time to witness Jonas's guilt burst into the open. Jonas dropped the rifle, defeated by his own unraveling lies. Crow, unable to deny the truth, arrested him. When the dust settled, Ayanna sank to her knees, not in fear, but in release. Years of sorrow bled into the earth beneath her. Elias knelt beside her. "You're safe now," he murmured. She looked at him, eyes shimmering, no longer guarded. "I don't know where I belong." "Maybe here," he said. "Or maybe somewhere we choose together." Clara wrapped her arms around Ayanna, anchoring them all to a fragile, new beginning. As the sun rose over the weathered station, they stood as three silhouettes bound not by blood, but by truth, courage, and the tender possibility of healing. And though the future remained unwritten, it no longer felt like a threat, only an open road waiting for their first shared step.